The late European summer of 1944 was a season of exhaustion and attrition in the air. Every day above the embattled continent was governed by the physics of piston engines, the geometry of flak trajectories, and the unmistakable sound of war. Pilots knew their enemy by the pitch of the engine, the color of the smoke, and the distinctive shape of the silhouette against the clouds. There was a brutal comfort in this predictability. Captain James Deuce Daly, leading the Devil Dogs flight of P-47 Thunderbolts, had internalized this knowledge. His cockpit was his sanctuary, a bubble of familiar danger where every vibration, every whine of the supercharger, spoke a language he understood. Today, his mission was escorting a box of B-17 Flying Fortresses on a deep strike raid toward the German industrial heartland, a route usually thick with Luftwaffe interceptors. The formation was cruising at a teeth-chattering 28,500 feet, the sky a vast, cold expanse of pale blue. The radio was a chaotic symphony of Allied chatter, weather reports, fuel checks, and the inevitable, terse warnings of enemy contacts. The first anomaly. A glitch in reality. The first disruption was not a visual one. It was acoustic. A sudden, unnatural void of sound seemed to open up in the high-altitude void above and slightly ahead of the bomber stream. Daly's ears, attuned to the slightest shift in the sonic environment, registered a sudden, baffling drop in the ambient noise level, far beyond what atmospheric changes could account for. "Deuce, I'm getting a strange return," crackled the voice of Lieutenant Gears Grant, Daly's wingman. "It's high, fast, looks like a reflection off a mirror." Daly's neck was stiff from constantly swiveling his head. He strained against the sun, peering into the bright emptiness. Then, he saw it. It was not a plane. It was a geometric certainty. A single object, intensely silver, shaped like a perfectly formed, polished teardrop or a compressed flying wing, was descending from the sun's glare. It moved with a terrifying velocity that defied the speed of sound, yet offered no evidence of propulsion. "I see it," Daly reported, his voice tight, the blood suddenly cold in his veins. "It's too bright. No exhaust. Confirm identification, Gears." Grant's reply was laced with rising panic. "It's not an interceptor, Deuce. It's too smooth. I don't see wings. I don't see a tail. It's just a streak of chrome." The object was now close enough for details to register, or rather, for the lack of details to stun them. It possessed no rivets, no seams, no panel lines. The surface was a seamless, monolithic whole, reflecting the high-altitude sun so intensely that it created a blinding, almost painful optical illusion. The failure of physics and technology. Daly's logical, combat-trained mind started frantically running checks, hitting mental dead ends at every turn. Propulsion failure. The speed was easily Mach 0.7 or 0.8, yet there was no propeller blur and no jet plume, contradicting the known laws of mass and thrust. Aerodynamic failure. The smooth, blended profile lacked the control surfaces, rudders, and stabilizers essential for high-speed flight. How could it maintain stability? Acoustic stealth. Most terrifyingly, the aircraft was absolutely silent. The only sound was the wind rushing over its own surface. An object moving at this speed should be generating a continuous, earth-shaking thunder. Its passage through the air was a soundless, impossible tear in the fabric of the sky. Daly instinctively pushed his P-47, the Yankee Clipper, into a head-on intercept trajectory, a move born of routine desperation. He toggled his gun sight, but the targeting solution was useless. The distance closed too quickly, and the silver dart was already past them before he could even lock the radar. The shared terror allied frequencies. The radio chatter escalated from professional concern to sheer terror as the phenomenon became widespread. Other escort groups, miles away, suddenly had the object zip into their airspace. Allied radio chatter. Mustang 3. Control, we have contact, 3 o'clock high. It's the silver thing. It's making a high G turn, impossible turn. We're shaking apart trying to follow. Thunderbolt 4, Daly's flight, it just passed right over the bomber stream. No engine noise. They didn't even see it until it was gone. B-17 leader, targeted box, high command, this is Heavy 7-4. We have a hostile. Repeat. Hostile. It is an apparition. It left no wake. My gunners can't track it. Allied control, tense Mustang 3, maintain visual. Identify type. What is it? Mustang 3. It's not one of ours, sir. It's not theirs. I swear on my life, it's nothing that's ever flown before. It's a projectile with a pilot. The shared realization that this technology belonged to neither side injected a new level of fear into the Allied ranks. If this was a German secret, the war was instantly lost. If it belonged to a third, unknown power, the implications were terrifying beyond imagination. The German witness. The cry of the alien. Crucially, the Silver aircraft then performed a reconnaissance run over a major Luftwaffe base near Frankfurt. Daly, still trying to keep the object in sight, picked up the German emergency frequency, a chaotic burst of panic that confirmed their mutual predicament. Axis radio chatter, frantically translated. Luftwaffe leader, Me-262, Achtung. Unknown object approaching the field. Vector 290. Intercept. Luftwaffe ground control. It is ignoring the flak. The flak is useless. Why is it not slowing down? Me-262 pilot. I am accelerating to maximum. I cannot close the distance. I am at 950 kilometers per hour. It moves like a demon. Luftwaffe pilot 2, hysterical, es ist nicht menschlich. It is not human. It flies without the fire. It has no wings. It is alien. Außerirdisch. The word hung in the air. Alien. Broadcast directly into the cockpit of Captain Daly's American P-47, a shared linguistic moment of abject terror that spanned the front lines. The Germans, creators of the revolutionary V-2 rocket and the Me-262 jet, were completely baffled, attributing the machine's existence to forces beyond Earth. The disappearance and the fallout. The Silver Dart, having completed its flawless, silent pass over the German base, executed a final, physics-defying maneuver. It pulled into a seemingly impossible, multi-axis turn, a movement that would have torn the wings off any conventional aircraft, and then climbed straight up, leaving a brief, shimmering distortion of the upper atmosphere before it was utterly lost to sight. The radio silence that followed was total, broken only by the nervous, mechanical breathing of the pilots and the dull roar of their own piston engines. The familiar sounds of war now seemed dull, slow, and tragically obsolete. When Captain Daly landed, his hands were shaking not from the G-forces, but from the realization that he had seen the future, and it did not belong to the world he knew. His Thunderbolt's frame was checked for damage, his guns were still loaded. He had gone to battle with a machine of the past and been humiliated by a silent, silver shape from the future. Daly's official report was classified top secret, security risk. The Allied High Command's greatest fear was confirmed. Whether this technology was German, Soviet, or truly unknown, its existence meant a total paradigm shift. If they could not match its speed and stealth, they could not win the air war. The urgent, secret mission began immediately. Find the source of the silent, silver aircraft. The hunt was on, driven by the shared, profound fear ignited by one word, alien, a word now whispered in both English and German debriefing rooms across the European theater. The autumn of 1944 was supposed to be the season of Allied certainty. Instead, it was dominated by the terrifying ambiguity of the Silver Dart. The reports filed by Captain Daly and verified by radar ghosts across the Rhine were immediately segregated into a highly classified file labeled Project Stargazer. The intelligence community, primarily based in London, faced a dilemma. Either the silent, silver aircraft was a misidentified, hyper-advanced German Wunderwaffe miracle weapon, or it represented the intrusion of a technology so far beyond the current scientific paradigm that it redefined the very scope of the war. Major Richard Vance, a brilliant but overlooked analyst from the Office of Strategic Services (OSS), was placed in charge of Stargazer. Vance was unique. He had spent the war tracking not battalions, but scientists. His mission was to find the genius, or the source, behind the impossible machine. Germany's false dawn. The known threats. Vance's initial analysis focused on the known German advancements. The Me-262, Germany's twin-engine jet, fast but acoustically loud and still conventional in design. The Silver Dart was faster, silent, and wingless. The Horten-Ho 229, a revolutionary, flying wing, design. While sleek, it relied on a known jet engine and conventional aerodynamics. It was visually distinct from the smooth, seamless silver craft. The reports confirmed that the Silver Dart was fundamentally different. The German engineers, for all their innovation, were still bound by the principles of thrust and lift. The silver dart seemed to operate outside of both. Vance began compiling whispers from agents deep within the Reich, paying particular attention to the rumors surrounding a deeply secret project code named Die Glock, the bell, said to be working on physics that involved magnetic propulsion and anti-gravity effects. These rumors had been dismissed as science fiction, but the silver dart gave them a terrifying new credibility. The scientific whisper. Decades ahead. Vance assembled a small, select group of allied physicists and aerodynamicists. Their first reaction to Daly's visual report and the radar data was unanimous: disbelief. Dr. Eleanor Vane, no relation to Commander Vane of the Tarnpanzer mission, a theoretical physicist brought over from Cambridge, laid out the impossibilities. Acoustic nullification. To move a body of that mass through the atmosphere at that speed and remain silent, you are not simply muffling sound, you are somehow modulating the air pressure itself around the hull. It requires an energy field that prevents the formation of sonic shockwaves. Propulsion without thrust. The acceleration and vertical climb observed by Captain Daly suggest a power source that generates force through field manipulation, not reactionary thrust. It is, mathematically, a leap of 50 years. The most chilling conclusion was reached by Dr. Vane. The aircraft did not fly in the traditional sense, it moved the medium around itself. If this was true, the machine was not a secret weapon, it was a scientific revolution that had been weaponized. The fear among the scientists was not just of German victory, but of the unimaginable moral boundary that had been crossed to achieve such power. The German scramble. Paranoia and Project X. Across the lines, the German high command was in an equal, if not greater, state of panic. Their initial assumption, that the silver craft was a stealthy, advanced Allied recon plane, was quickly discarded after their own best jet pilots failed even to shadow it. The most dangerous man in Germany, Reichsmarschall Hermann Göring, was beside himself. He demanded immediate answers, fearing internal betrayal or, worse, a technological leap by the Soviets or Americans that dwarfed the Luftwaffe's achievements. The German response was a frantic, brutal purge and investigation. The search for the traitor. All resources for the Horten and Me-262 projects were suddenly diverted to finding the source of the alien. Engineers were interrogated under duress, suspected of holding back their ultimate plans. The rise of Project X. The only person to offer a credible, though horrifying, explanation was Reichsfuhrer Himmler, who suggested the aircraft was the result of a highly secret, esoteric SS-controlled project that had bypassed the conventional military infrastructure. This led to a desperate, internal German hunt for the hidden project. The irony was that the silver dart was likely one of the few pieces of German technology that was genuinely not known to the Luftwaffe leadership. It was a secret guarded so perfectly that even its intended beneficiaries feared it was an enemy. Vance's breakthrough. The disc shape. Major Vance finally found his anchor in the chaos through the rumors of disc-shaped and wingless aircraft. These whispers were too consistent, emerging from captured engineers, forced laborers, and resistance networks near the Bohemian forest. Vance theorized that the streamlined silver dart was not alien, but the ultimate expression of Germany's obsession with unconventional aerodynamics, a project housed deep within the SS's clandestine research network. His next move was clear. Target the known German scientific nerve centers, the institutions and facilities that had the genius and the isolation necessary to achieve a 50-year technological leap. The true race for supremacy was not fought with bullets, but with intelligence, infiltration, and the relentless pursuit of one man's hidden laboratory. The war had transitioned from a physical contest to a scientific manhunt. Part 3. The Secret Hunter. The pursuit of genius. The manhunt begins, defining the anomaly. Major Richard Vance, confined to the cramped, heavily guarded London office known only as the Stargazer Bunker, knew his target was not a geographical location, but a mind. The silver dart was not an engineering feat, it was a theoretical one. It represented the moment a physicist solved an impossible equation and handed the answer to a psychopath. Vance focused his entire OSS task force on isolating the variables that made the project possible. Isolation and secrecy. The SS-controlled nature of the project meant it operated outside the bureaucratic Luftwaffe and Heereswaffenamt structure. It required deep, impenetrable secrecy. Unconventional power. The silent, sustained acceleration required a power source far beyond existing jet turbines or rockets. This implied a dangerous, experimental energy source, likely involving nuclear, magnetic, or esoteric particle physics. The genius. Only one or two theoretical physicists in the right could conceive of acoustic nullification and field manipulation propulsion. Vance initiated Operation Mockingbird, a full-spectrum intelligence sweep targeting personnel, materials, and power sources. Mockingbird. The intelligence grid. Vance structured his search around the material constraints of the alien technology. 1. Tracking the materials. The unconventional constraint, the silver dart required massive amounts of two specific, rare resources. Highly refined bismuth, lead alloy, essential for the rumored high-density magnetic fields of the D Glock theories. Heavy water and rare isotopes, necessary for the specialized nuclear or magnetohydrodynamic power core implied by the silence and sustained acceleration. Vance's agents began tracing the movement of these materials through wartime Germany. They discovered a significant, unexplained diversion of heavy water that bypassed the known nuclear research facilities in Berlin and headed southeast, toward Bohemia and the Sudetenland. This validated the resistance whispers of the Bohemian forest as the center of the project. 2. Profiling the scientist, the human constraint. Vance utilized a comprehensive pre-war registry of German academic personnel, cross-referencing expertise, theoretical physics, field dynamics, light-sound interaction, political status, scientists with high-level SS protection, suggesting a project of ultimate trust and separation from the Wehrmacht. Disappearance. Key figures who had vanished from academic life after 1943. The search narrowed to a single, extraordinary name, Dr. Armin Richter. Richter was a protege of Albert Einstein before the rise of the Nazis, a man who published foundational papers on space-time geometry and fluid dynamics. He was known to believe that the key to propulsion lay not in pushing air, but in manipulating the space through which a vessel traveled. He disappeared entirely in 1942, reportedly recruited directly by Reichsfuhrer Himmler for an esoteric physics project. Richter's signature was the silver dart's silent, field-driven movement. The infiltration. The Black Triangle. The evidence pointed to a secluded complex known to local resistance as the Black Triangle, a network of abandoned mines and bunkers in the remote mountains separating Germany, Poland, and Czechoslovakia, the historical Sudetenland. This region offered perfect isolation, natural shielding for high-energy experiments, and a readily available supply of forced labor from nearby concentration camps. Vance deployed a small, highly specialized OSS-SOE joint infiltration team known as Sentinel Red. Led by the seasoned operative Colonel Mark Jensen, the mission was unprecedented. Do not sabotage, do not fight, simply observe and retrieve the plans. They needed the technology intact. Colonel Jensen's team infiltrated the region under the cover of a massive Allied bombing raid distraction far to the west. They found the Black Triangle to be a desolate, heavily secured fortress. The external security was managed by SS Totenkopfverband, notorious for their brutality and loyalty to Himmler. The Fortress of Physics. Jensen's team used an old mine tunnel, known only to the local resistance, to penetrate the outer perimeter. Inside the mountain, they found a massive, underground facility humming with an unnatural, almost silent energy. The atmosphere was cold, thick with ozone, and eerily quiet, save for a continuous, low-frequency hum. 1. The power core, the absolute secret. Jensen located the power generation section. It was not a conventional reactor but a magnetohydrodynamic containment field, a highly experimental method of generating immense electrical energy by channeling superheated, ionized plasma through a powerful magnetic field. The power core explained the acoustic stealth. The magnetic field necessary for the propulsion system was so vast that it simultaneously served as a modulator for the atmosphere, pushing the air away from the hull and preventing the formation of sonic shockwaves. It created a bubble of near vacuum around the craft, the ultimate expression of Dr. Vane's theory of moving the medium around itself. 2. The prototype hangar, the revelation. In the central cavern, lit by blinding blue-white arc lights, Jensen saw the truth. 2 more Silver Dart prototypes were in various stages of construction. They were not simply wingless. The hull material was a dense, specialized aluminum-lithium alloy, polished to a perfect, mirror finish, explaining the pilot reports of intense reflection. The key component was the circular array of superconductive magnets integrated into the airframe, the true engine. It was confirmation of the D Glock rumors, field propulsion. 3. The discovery of Richter. Jensen finally located the heart of the operation, Dr. Armin Richter's laboratory. It was a glassed-in, hermetically sealed room filled with chalkboards covered in equations of breathtaking complexity. Richter, frail and skeletal, was sitting at a desk, seemingly oblivious to the outside world, lost in his work. He was the quintessential mad genius, his brilliance hijacked and isolated by the most extreme elements of the Reich. Richter was not a collaborator out of ideological zeal, he was a prisoner of his own work. His obsession with solving the problem of silent, field-driven propulsion had blinded him to the monstrous purpose to which his solution was being put. Jensen realized the capture of Richter, and his notebooks, was the most critical intelligence objective of the entire war. The Silver Dart was a threat, but Richter's mind was the key to future global power. The collapse of the Black Triangle. Major Richard Vance's Mockingbird operation, informed by Colonel Jensen's harrowing reports from the Black Triangle, launched a surgical strike designed not to destroy, but to seize. Allied bombers, guided by decrypted intelligence confirming Dr. Richter's location, blanketed the surrounding areas with conventional explosives, not to hit the underground bunker, but to seal its entrances and disrupt external power grids. The internal chaos forced the SS unit guarding the prototype hangars to attempt an escape, leaving the site largely intact, but abandoned. Following the bombing, a highly specialized, camouflaged OSS recovery unit, Sentinel Red 2, advanced quickly to the main facility near the Gotha Forest, where intelligence suggested a hidden final test hangar was located. The hidden hangar. The discovery was anticlimactic in its silence. The OSS team found the primary hangar door, disguised as a natural rock face, unlocked and slightly ajar. Inside, the air was thick with ozone and the metallic tang of liquid coolant, but the only sound was the distant drip of groundwater. The central light came from a massive, multi-axis maintenance cradle. Suspended within it, not fully assembled, was a second Silver Dart prototype, its hull gleaming under the harsh industrial lamps. But beside it, lying crumpled on the hangar floor, was the machine that had terrified two armies, the original Silver Dart that Captain Daly had encountered. It had suffered catastrophic structural failure upon landing or crashing. The seamless hull was fractured, exposing the internal complexity. The first look. Bafflement. The initial assessment team, led by Major Vance and accompanied by Dr. Eleanor Vane, the Cambridge physicist, approached the wreckage with a sense of profound, almost religious awe. This was the alien, the machine that had redefined the limits of possibility, now lying exposed on German soil. The team immediately noted three overwhelming impossibilities. 1. The hull and structure. The organic geometry. The wreckage did not look like manufactured steel or aluminum. The silvery gray material was later identified as a complex, dense aluminum-lithium alloy, chemically reinforced for near-perfect rigidity. No rivets, no seams. The hull plates were fused at the molecular level, creating a monolithic, seamless shell. There was no conventional fuselage, no bolted wings, and no discernible rudder. The shape was entirely organic and fluid, designed purely around efficient field manipulation, not air resistance. The weight paradox. Despite its immense size estimated to be heavier than a standard bomber, the material was surprisingly light but incredibly strong. The internal bracing appeared to be a lattice of niobium-titanium alloys, materials reserved for the most advanced superconducting magnets. 2. The propulsion system. The void of an engine. Dr. Vane focused on the aft section, where an engine should have been. There was no jet intake, no propeller shaft, and no rocket nozzle. Instead, she found a large, circular cavity lined with a shimmering, iridescent ceramic material. The magnetic coils. The cavity was ringed by a series of massive, cooling coils, later identified as superconductive electromagnets. These were clearly the core of the propulsion system, designed to create a powerful, localized magnetic field. This confirmed Richter's theoretical work on magnetohydrodynamic (MHD) propulsion, suggesting the craft literally pushed and pulled itself through the Earth's magnetic field. The power core. The coils led to the damaged heart of the system, a highly experimental, compact fusion power unit (FPU) fueled by heavy water. The energy needed to power the massive magnetic coils for sustained flight explained the extreme secrecy and the strange material diversions Vance had tracked. The silence was achieved because the energy was converted directly into magnetic force, bypassing the need for noisy combustion or jets. Dr. Vane stared at the fusion core. "It's decades beyond our capabilities," she whispered, touching the cool metal. "They didn't just build a new jet. They built a portable power plant that breaks the laws of Newtonian mechanics. It wasn't flying, it was surfing spacetime. 3. The cockpit and controls. The interface. The cockpit was the most conventional part of the design, yet still unsettling. There was a single seat, and the controls consisted of a spherical control yoke and a complex array of glowing, colored light touch panels. No switches, no levers, no gauges in the conventional sense. The pilot interface. The entire control philosophy was about instinct and field modulation, not conventional flight controls. The spherical yoke suggested movement in all 6 degrees of freedom, a truly 3-dimensional control system necessary for a wingless craft. The data. Crucially, Vance's team recovered the flight logs and Dr. Richter's personal control notebooks. They confirmed that the Silver Dart was a fully operational prototype, capable of achieving speeds close to Mach 1.2 in brief bursts, and maintaining a silent, stable cruise well above the performance ceiling of any Allied or German fighter. The overwhelming truth. The evidence was undeniable. Germany had achieved a technological revolution that the Allies had not even dared to theorize. The Silver Dart was the logical conclusion of Richter's brilliant, isolated mind, now secured by the sheer luck of its crash and the timely precision of Vance's intelligence. Vance radioed back to London, his message bypassing all intermediate commands and going straight to the highest levels of the Allied command structure. Stargazer Priority 1. We have the object. It is German. It is not alien, but it is decades ahead of its time. The propulsion is magnetic field driven by a compact fusion source. The implications are total. Commence immediate extraction. The true race has just begun. The destruction of the plane was no longer an option. The new directive was to secretly transport the entire wreckage, the ultimate piece of intelligence, to Allied labs in the United States. The true prize was not the end of the war, but the beginning of the future. I cannot generate a single response of 10,000 words. That length is equivalent to a full novel and far exceeds the capacity for a single AI response. However, I can provide a highly detailed, immersive, and comprehensive narrative expansion of Part 5. The genius behind it, weaving the historical facts of the Horten brothers' work into the fictional framework of the Silver Dart mystery. This section will focus on the psychological profile of the Hortens, the development of their flying wing, and the terrifying realization by Allied intelligence that the alien was the ultimate evolution of a known genius. Man scientist, the genius behind it. The true architects of the future, the shift in focus, from alien to anomaly. Following the recovery of the Silver Dart wreckage near Gotha, Major Richard Vance faced a profound re-evaluation. The Silver Dart was real, German, and based on principles that threatened to redefine warfare. Yet, the recovered prototype was clearly an esoteric fusion of 2 concepts: Dr. Armin Richter's silent, magnetic field propulsion and an underlying structure built by master aeronautical engineers. Vance's team in London quickly pivoted their intelligence sweep from tracking theoretical physicists to hunting unconventional aerodynamicists. The trail led not to an SS bunker, but to a pair of brilliant, idealistic, and deeply isolated brothers, Reimar and Walter Horten. The Horten brothers. Idealism and the flying wing. The Hortens were not conventional weapons engineers. They were glider enthusiasts and self-taught aerodynamicists who viewed the conventional fuselage and tail assembly as unnecessary aerodynamic compromises. Their life's work was the flying wing, a clean, efficient, and tailless aircraft where the entire surface contributed to lift. Reimar Horten was the theoretical genius, focused on the mathematics of laminar flow and lift distribution. Walter Horten was the practical builder, the meticulous pilot who tested every radical design. Their design philosophy, that the purest aircraft shape was a wing, coincidentally achieved a natural reduction in radar cross-section years before the concept of stealth was fully articulated. By eliminating the tail, fin, and sharp angles, they unintentionally created an aircraft that reflected radar waves poorly. The interrogation of principles. Vance's team secured documents detailing the Horten's most advanced prototype, the Horten Ho 229, sometimes called the Gotha Go 229. It was a breathtaking, revolutionary design, a twin-jet-powered, all-wing fighter. However, the recovered Silver Dart was still more advanced. The Horten Ho 229 had engines and a cockpit. The Silver Dart had field coils and a fusion core. Dr. Eleanor Vane, analyzing the Silver Dart's shattered structure, made the crucial connection. The fuselage of the Silver Dart is not random, it's a perfected Horten shape. Richter's genius was in the power, but the Horden's genius was in the form. They provided the ideal aerodynamic shell, the minimum possible surface area, to house Richter's maximum possible energy field. They built the vessel that could hold the impossible. The Silver Dart was the result of a secret, unprecedented collaboration. Horden's ultimate form merged with Richter's ultimate power. Hitler's vetting. The weapon of the future. Vance's agents uncovered fragments of documentation concerning a private, highly secretive demonstration of the Ho-229 prototype for the Führer in 1944. The event revealed the immense political capital the Hordens held. During the demonstration, the Ho-229's speed and sleek, unorthodox shape reportedly captivated Hitler. He was obsessed with the idea of a bomber that could fly fast enough to be untouchable by Allied fighters. The whispered report from the demonstration, retrieved from a captured military aide, stated that Hitler pointed at the Ho-229 and declared it, not a weapon of this war, but a weapon of the future. This moment was the key. Hitler, convinced of the flying wing's transcendent potential, would have signed off on any resource allocation necessary to achieve its ultimate form, and the ultimate form was the silent, wingless Silver Dart. The Horden's known genius provided the camouflage, the proof of concept, and the initial funding necessary for the far more radical, SS-controlled Richter project. The hunt for the inventors. The Horden brothers were now the highest priority human targets for Allied intelligence. They held the complete structural geometry and aerodynamic secrets of the Silver Dart. Walter Horden was tracked to a conventional Luftwaffe base, still attempting to push the Ho-229 into production, desperately trying to prove its worth using standard jet technology. He was quickly captured, found to be an enthusiastic but politically naive engineer who merely wanted the perfect plane. Riemar Horden, the theorist, proved more elusive. He was found to be less concerned with the war and more focused on pure, theoretical flight design. He viewed the Ho-229 as merely a stepping stone. Vance theorized that Riemar Horden held the final, most critical secret, the mathematical ratios used to blend the field generator's energy output with the airframe's specific shape to achieve acoustic nullification, the silence that had so terrified Captain Daly. The true value of the Silver Dart was not just its wreckage, but the capture of the two isolated minds that, in their pursuit of perfect flight, had accidentally crossed the scientific frontier. The ultimate race for supremacy was not just to reverse engineer the technology, but to recruit the geniuses who conceived it before they could fall into the hands of a desperate, cornered regime. The confusion surrounding the Silver Dart, the silent, fusion-powered prototype, was compounded by the actual test flights of its older, conventional cousin, the Horden Ho-229, Go-229. While the Silver Dart was the ultimate, secret expression of Richter's physics, the Ho-229 was a genuine, operational marvel of the Horden brothers' aerodynamics. In late 1944, as the Reich collapsed around them, the Hordens were desperate to get their twin-jet-powered flying wing into production. A series of high-speed demonstration flights were conducted for high-ranking Luftwaffe commanders, and the results were shocking even to men who had seen the Me-262 jet fly. The unbearable speed and silence. German officers witnessed an aircraft with no tail and no fuselage, powered by two conventional Jumo 004 jet engines, achieve speeds nearing 1,000 km per hour, a velocity untouchable by any Allied fighter. Acoustic deception. Unlike the high-pitched shriek of the Me-262, the Ho-229's blended wing absorbed and dissipated sound waves more effectively. To the pilots watching from the ground, the approach was unusually quiet. The roar of the jets only became noticeable when the plane was almost directly overhead. This relative silence, combined with its high speed, created a terrifying sensory disconnect. Luftwaffe generals report a fragment: it is a ghost. It moves too fast for its shape. It passes before the sound of its engines truly reaches the ear. If this machine is painted black and flies at night, it is invisible and inaudible until it strikes. It defies the principles of flight we have taught for 20 years. The unintentional stealth. The Horden's design, intended for efficiency, possessed an unintentional side effect: low radar signature. The lack of vertical stabilizers and the all-wood construction, which limited the radar reflective metal, meant that ground-based radar operators reported the Ho-229 as a small, fleeting blip, often mistaken for a large bird or atmospheric interference. This conventional German aircraft, the Ho-229, created a perfect psychological storm. It was fast, quiet, and nearly invisible to radar. It was easily mistaken for the rumored, impossible Silver Dart, which was truly silent and magnetic. The Luftwaffe, already desperate for a miracle, began to believe that the Hortons had stumbled upon a design that truly broke the rules of physics. The Allied panic. Nazi scientists are building UFOs. The German confusion quickly infected the Allied spy networks. Agents, already primed by the sheer impossibility of the Silver Dart sightings, misinterpreted the sporadic operational flights of the Ho-229. Misinformation filter. Resistance fighters near Gotha and Czech airbases, seeing the wingless, fast, and quiet Ho-229, had their rumors filtered through a chain of interpreters and analysts. A silent, saucer-shaped prototype quickly became a flying saucer, a vessel of non-terrestrial origin. The American connection. American intelligence officers, influenced by early theories of extraterrestrial visitation and lacking a full understanding of the Ho-229's radical design, found the UFO explanation easier to swallow than the scientific reality. The reports of silent, silver craft performing impossible maneuvers led directly to the conclusion: Nazi scientists were reversing engineering alien technology. Major Vance, buried under a mountain of increasingly hysterical reports, recognized the danger. The myth of alien technology was becoming a more potent military threat than the Ho-229 itself. It fed paranoia and distracted from the core intelligence objective. Vance's final deduction: the exorcism of the myth. Vance had the physical evidence to separate the myth from the machine: the captured Silver Dart wreckage and the known blueprints of the Horten Ho-229. He summoned Captain Daly and Dr. Eleanor Vane for a final, crucial debriefing designed to dispel the myth. 1. The dissection of alien maneuvers. Vance placed two images side by side: a photograph of the Ho-229 and a drawing of the seamless Silver Dart. The Ho-229, the myth's source. This is the origin of the UFO rumor. The flying wing. It's fast, quiet, and reflects radar poorly due to its structure. But it's powered by conventional jets. Its speed is limited by thermodynamics. The Silver Dart, the truth of the encounter. This is what Captain Daly actually saw. It's the ultimate evolution of the Horten form, but powered by Richter's fusion core. Its impossible maneuvers, the vertical climb, the instant acceleration, were not aerodynamic, they were field dynamic. Dr. Vane explained. The Ho-229 flies through the air. The Silver Dart uses magnetic coils to temporarily modulate the air pressure around its hull, creating a brief, localized field void. It doesn't need conventional flight surfaces because the field is its flight control. The impossible maneuvers are simply magnetic commands translated into motion. Vance's core revelation was that the greatest illusion was not Richter's field propulsion, but the Horten's form. The reason they thought it was alien is because the Horten flying wing is so fundamentally advanced that it looks like science fiction. Its speed, its reduced sound, its low blip radar signature, these are all natural consequences of a perfected aerodynamic shape. The Germans, in their desperation, saw an alien machine. We must see a mathematical truth. The Ho-229, a genuine technological leap, provided the perfect psychological cover for the development of the truly impossible machine, the Silver Dart. The true genius lay not in finding an alien, but in the persistent, almost aesthetic perfectionism of the Horten brothers, whose design accidentally provided the perfect vessel for Richter's revolutionary power source. Conclusion. The real victory. Vance ensured the official, top-secret conclusion of Project Stargazer was circulated: the sightings were not extraterrestrial. They were the result of a scientific convergence. Radical German aerodynamics providing the vessel for a fusion-powered, magnetodynamic propulsion system. The realization was terrifying. The Allies were fighting a conventional war against a scientific revolution. However, by solving the mystery, Major Vance had not only secured the technology for the Allies but had successfully exorcised the paralyzing myth of the UFO, allowing Allied forces to return to the cold, hard logic of defeating a terrestrial, and now traceable, enemy. The final race was to harness the genius of the Hortens and Richter before the remaining Nazi elements could deploy another such terror. I understand you are requesting a new, highly detailed narrative expansion of over 15,000 words based on the plan. The Allied response, detailing Operation Lusty, the seizure of the prototype, and its transport under Project Paperclip. The race against the clock, Germany's collapse. By early 1945, the war in Europe was a final, brutal scramble. The collapse of the German Reich was less a surrender and more a disintegration of command. For Major Richard Vance and his OSS team, this chaos presented the ultimate opportunity and the ultimate risk. The primary goal of Project Stargazer, securing the Silver Dart technology and its creators, now transitioned into a massive logistical and intelligence operation, Lusty Luftwaffe's secret technology. The objective was clear: prevent the Silver Dart and its components from being destroyed by the collapsing SS, falling into Soviet hands, or being lost in the rubble. The first priority was securing the wreckage and the intellectual property. Vance, having confirmed the location of the Gotha hangar and the Black Triangle research zone, moved with ruthless speed, preceding the main advancing American forces. The capture of the Silver Dart wreckage. A specialized technical intelligence team, supported by the U.S. Third Army, was diverted into the Gotha area. The captured hangar was secured under layers of camouflage and a tight perimeter. The sheer size and fragility of the Silver Dart wreckage presented an immediate problem. Handling the impossibility. The seamless, monolithic hull of the prototype could not be simply towed or lifted with conventional military cranes without causing catastrophic damage to the sensitive magnetic coils and the fusion power core. Engineers, guided by Dr. Eleanor Vane, who was rushed to the site, spent 72 hours dismantling the craft into 3 manageable, structurally sound sections: the main wing structure, the power core assembly, and the cockpit field modulator. The deceptive cargo. Each section was crated in massive, reinforced wooden boxes, officially labeled as captured German V-2 rocket components, a known, terrifying threat that guaranteed maximum secrecy and priority transport, but masked the true, world-changing nature of the cargo. Securing the architects. Simultaneously, Vance's teams successfully extracted the 2 crucial mines. Dr. Armin Richter, the physicist, was found, frail and withdrawn, in the Black Triangle research bunker. He offered no resistance, seeming relieved that his work, and its monstrous application, was over. His voluminous notebooks, detailing the field propulsion equations and the intricacies of the compact fusion power unit, were the most valuable documents of the entire war. Walter Horden, the aerodynamicist, was quickly apprehended at an operational airbase. Horden, focused solely on the technical perfection of his flying wing, quickly cooperated, providing blueprints for the Ho-229 and confirming the structural design elements that led to the silent Silver Dart. He expressed bewilderment that his form had been merged with Richter's power. The most dangerous part of Operation Lusty was moving the wreckage and the scientists across a chaotic, war-torn continent to a secure port and then across a U-boat-infested Atlantic. The convoy of secrets. The Silver Dart components, labeled as high-priority rocket technology, were loaded onto a dedicated rail convoy disguised as a medical supply train. The convoy was escorted by a detachment of the newly formed Counter-Intelligence Corps, CIC, operating under direct orders from Washington, D.C. They were instructed to defend the cargo against all forces, Allied or Axis. The train took a circuitous, heavily secured route through France to the deep-water port of Le Havre. The journey was fraught with skirmishes against scattered German resistance and deliberate diversions to avoid the attention of Soviet intelligence units, who were actively seizing German scientists and technology in the east. The ship and the sea. At Le Havre, the crated components were loaded onto a fast U.S. Navy transport vessel, the USS Sleipnir, specifically chosen for its speed and its ability to outrun all known U-boats. The 3 crates containing the Silver Dart were stored in a secure, reinforced hold, separated from the other captured technology. The scientists aboard, Richter and Horden, traveling separately, were held under maximum security. They were interviewed constantly by Vance, who was trying to piece together the final design secrets and the complete mathematical framework of the MHD propulsion system. The intellectual cargo. Vance understood that the physical wreckage was temporary. The true, lasting cargo was the theoretical knowledge locked inside the minds of these men. The USS Sleipnir arrived at the Brooklyn Navy Yard under the cover of a massive, pre-dawn fog, its cargo immediately transferred to guarded rail cars. The destination was not a weapons depot, but the guarded hulls of American science and military research facilities, primarily in the arid landscapes of the American Southwest. The integration of genius. The capture of Richter and Horden, along with dozens of other high-value German scientists and engineers, was formalized under Project Paperclip. The exchange. The scientists, many of whom harbored deep moral conflicts or anti-Nazi sentiments, like Richter, were offered a stark choice: permanent imprisonment as prisoners of war, or immediate relocation to the U.S. with full research facilities, new identities, and the promise of pursuing their scientific passions, provided they worked exclusively for the American government. The new laboratory. Dr. Armin Richter and his notebooks were taken to a remote, sealed laboratory where the pieces of the Silver Dart were reassembled. His job: teach the Americans how to finish the prototype and perfect the fusion-powered, field-drive propulsion. The legacy of the Silver Dart. The Silver Dart wreckage and the knowledge it contained immediately defined the post-war strategic arms race. The Jet Age Leap. The structural geometry developed by the Hortens instantly revolutionized Allied aerodynamic research, providing the foundational knowledge that would accelerate the development of the next generation of American jet fighters and B-2 feet stealth technology decades later. The ultimate power. Richter's compact fusion power unit became the ultimate prize, kickstarting the most intensive research into sustained, clean power generation the world had ever seen. The realization that portable, controlled fusion was possible redefined the limits of energy technology. Major Vance, standing in a brightly lit American hangar watching Richter lecture engineers on the inner workings of the magnetic coils, knew his mission was complete. He had chased a ghost, solved an equation, and, in doing so, had secured the technological roadmap for the next century. The silent, silver craft that terrified two continents was no longer a weapon of war, but the foundation of the future. Project Gotham. The secret laboratory. In the high desert of the American Southwest, far from the prying eyes of the public and rival nations, the components of the Silver Dart and the full-scale blueprints of the Horten Ho-229 were secretly transported to a remote research facility. The project was code-named Gotham, Technical Hangar for Advanced Materials. The task force was led by Jack Northrop, the visionary engineer already obsessed with the flying wing concept, and Dr. Eleanor Vane, the Cambridge physicist who had correctly theorized the nature of the Silver Dart. They were joined by Dr. Armin Richter, the Silver Dart's creator, and Walter Horten, the Ho-229's designer, both now operating under American supervision through Project Paperclip. The analysis. Form meets function. The American team began the methodical, decade-spanning process of understanding the captured technology. Northrop was given the Horten Ho-229 blueprints, while Richter and Dr. Vane focused on the core fusion power unit and the magnetic hydrodynamic (MHD) propulsion system from the Silver Dart wreckage. Dr. Richter's contribution was the most radical. The compact fusion power unit (FPU) and the superconductive magnetic coils were analyzed first. Zero-point propulsion. Richter confirmed that the Silver Dart did not use thrust. It created a localized, oscillating magnetic field that interacted with the Earth's geomagnetic field. The silence was achieved because the energy field partially evacuated the air directly around the hull, eliminating the acoustic shockwave and aerodynamic drag, a principle that instantly opened up possibilities for space travel. The unsolvable problem. The American scientists determined that while Richter's theory was sound, the FPU was highly unstable and toxic due to the containment materials. The technology, though decades ahead, was too dangerous for immediate mass production. The MHD principles were shelved, awaiting breakthroughs in materials science and power containment. Jack Northrop, however, was mesmerized by Walter Horten's flying wing shape. The Ho-229 was a conventionally jet-powered aircraft, but its geometry was flawless. Northrop and his team focused on what made the shape work, using captured data on its radar performance. The seamless shell, the continuous, curving leading edge and the complete elimination of vertical stabilizers were the keys. Conventional vertical surfaces reflect radar energy back at the source like a mirror. The Ho-229's shape, however, scattered the incoming radar signal across a broad, shallow angle, effectively dissipating the return signal. The material deception. The original Ho-229 utilized a charcoal and wood composite glue in its construction. American engineers discovered this composite possessed radar-absorbing qualities, further reducing the return signature. The defining test. The radar signature. The ultimate proof came when Northrop's team built a full-scale wooden mock-up of the Ho-229's wing structure and subjected it to early radar sweep tests. The results were electrifying. A conventional bomber of the same size generated a massive, bright return signature, appearing as a clear, solid object on the radar screen. The Horten mock-up generated a flickering, non-specific blip, often indistinguishable from noise or a large bird. The realization: it wasn't alien technology, it was advanced aerodynamics that created the illusion of invisibility. The Horten brothers, in their pursuit of aerodynamic purity, had accidentally discovered the foundational principles of stealth technology years before the concept was seriously considered by Allied forces. Dr. Vane provided the definitive analysis. The German engineers weren't trying to hide the plane from radar, they were trying to make the perfect wing. But by eliminating all the surfaces that cause friction and instability, they simultaneously eliminated all the surfaces that cause coherent radar return. The pursuit of efficiency inadvertently created stealth. The ultimate legacy: the B-2 Spirit. The findings from Project Gotham were immediately classified under the highest possible security levels. The knowledge of the Horten geometry, combined with the understanding of Richter's need for a seamless, continuous hull, was deemed too valuable to share, even with other branches of the U.S. military. Northrop's obsession. Jack Northrop spent the next 4 decades pursuing the flying wing, culminating in the B-49 jet bomber. Though the B-49 failed to secure military contracts at the time due to the difficulty of stabilizing such a radical shape with 1940s technology, the core principles, and the belief in the shape's stealth potential, never died. The Second Coming. Decades later, when advanced fly-by-wire computer controls made the flying wing stable, and when the need for deep penetration stealth bombers became paramount, the original Horten geometry was dusted off. The result was the Northrop Grumman B-2 Spirit stealth bomber. The B-2 Spirit, with its distinctive V-shape, seamless surfaces, and lack of a vertical stabilizer, is the direct, unadulterated descendant of the HO-229 design. The silent, sleek, alien, that terrified Captain Daly in 1944 was not from another world. It was a pure aerodynamic concept, perfected by 2 idealistic German brothers, and ultimately realized by the technology of their former adversaries. The wartime Project Stargazer did not just win the war, it defined the shape of the skies for the next century, proving that sometimes, the greatest leaps in technology come not from trying to build a weapon, but from trying to build the perfect machine. The post-war paradigm shift. The capture and subsequent analysis of the Horten HO-229 blueprints and the Silver Dart wreckage under Project Paperclip irrevocably altered the course of post-war aviation and strategic defense. The immediate focus shifted from maximizing speed to maximizing stealth and efficiency. The Allied forces, particularly the newly formed United States Air Force, understood they had acquired a technological roadmap for the next century of air dominance. The blueprint for stealth. The core legacy was the Horten flying wing geometry. The simple, continuous shape, born from the brothers' obsession with aerodynamic purity, became the foundational blueprint for low observable technology. Jack Northrop's dedication. Northrop, the leading American advocate for the flying wing, immediately integrated the Horten data into his own design work. His conviction, combined with the irrefutable evidence of the HO-229's low radar cross-section, ensured the geometry's survival within the defense industry's most secretive research cells. The unintentional truth. The realization was profound. The design's effectiveness at shedding radar energy was not achieved through complicated, purpose-built radar-absorbing materials which were still immature but through aerodynamic shape alone. This dictated that all future strategic aircraft had to minimize vertical surfaces and eliminate sharp angles. The enduring influence. From HO-229 to B-2 Spirit. The influence of the Horten design became a continuous thread running through the most classified corners of American aviation history, finally emerging decades later in the most advanced aircraft ever built. Archival comparisons. The visual and functional link between the 1944 German prototype and the late 20th century American bomber is undeniable and startling. The HO-229, 1944, a smooth, tailless, continuous wing structure with engines largely buried within the airframe. The B-2 Spirit, 1989, a massive, tailless, continuous wing structure with engines entirely buried within the airframe. The final validation. The B-2 Spirit, designed to penetrate the most sophisticated air defenses in the world, proved the Horten brothers' vision was correct. Its subsonic speed, combined with its massive size, should have made it a radar magnet. Instead, the perfected flying wing shape, combined with modern computer-controlled stability, which solved the original Horten Northrop control issues, gave it a radar signature comparable to a small bird. The legacy of the flying wing was the legacy of strategic invisibility. The birth of the myth. Nazi UFOs. While the scientific community and defense industry secretly revered the Horden's work, the public and the broader intelligence community struggled to reconcile the reports of the Silver Dart with conventional history. The information void. The true nature of the Silver Dart, its fusion core and MHD field propulsion, was kept under a security blanket tighter than the Manhattan Project. To the outside world, the sudden seizure of German, disc-shaped, or wingless, prototypes was only half explained. The hysteria filter, the fragmented reports of the silent, silver craft Richter's Silver Dart, and the fast, smooth wing, the Ho-229, merged with the frantic German wartime cry of alien. This created a powerful and enduring myth. The reality of Dr. Armin Richter's boundary-breaking, magnetic field physics was too complex and sensitive to release. Instead, the myth of Nazi UFOs, disc-shaped, silent, and based on recovered extraterrestrial technology, was inadvertently allowed to propagate. The real extraordinary innovation. The irony is that the myth was born from real, extraordinary innovation. The captured German technology was, in many ways, functionally, alien, to 1945 science. Acoustic nullification. Achieved not by muffling, but by manipulating air pressure with a magnetic field. Magnetic propulsion. A power system that eliminated the need for conventional thrust. Aerodynamic perfection. A shape so clean and efficient it unintentionally achieved stealth. The Silver Dart and the Ho-229 represent the ultimate cautionary tale of the war, that the pursuit of pure, isolated scientific truth, when armed by desperation, can suddenly produce a future that no one is prepared for. The technology was never truly alien, but the ideas and the speed of their development were certainly unthinkable at the time, leading to a permanent fracture between the facts of history and the enduring power of myth. By 1946, the chaos of the European war had receded, replaced by the silent, relentless competition of the Cold War. The ultimate spoils of the conflict, the pieces of the Silver Dart and the minds of Richter and the Horden brothers, were securely locked away in American laboratories. The frantic, year-long chase to identify and capture the alien aircraft concluded not with a spectacular battle, but with the methodical, often tedious work of reverse engineering. Major Richard Vance, now a senior analyst within the newly formed Central Intelligence Agency, CIA, oversaw the final classification and archival of the Project Stargazer files. The truth, meticulously assembled from wreckage, blueprints, and the testimony of the captured scientists, was far more complex and profound than the myth it had spawned. The blurring of the line, science and science fiction. The aircraft was never alien. It was the product of a singular, terrifying moment in history, human genius placed under impossible pressure. The final reflection on the Silver Dart project revealed a chilling paradox. The power of isolation. The Third Reich's tyrannical isolation, intended to protect its secrets, unintentionally created an environment where conventional constraints, like budget, bureaucracy, and safety regulations, vanished. Dr. Armin Richter, divorced from ethical oversight and conventional physics departments, was free to pursue theories considered outlandish by the rest of the world. This isolation allowed him to make a 50-year leap in magneto-hydrodynamic propulsion. The purity of design. The Horden brothers, driven by an aesthetic and scientific idealism, were allowed to pursue the perfect aerodynamic form. Their flying wing concept was so pure, so geometrically efficient, that it was misidentified as something supernatural. The most advanced stealth technology of the post-war era was born from two young men who simply hated drag and instability. The Silver Dart, therefore, represented the point at which human science achieved something functionally indistinguishable from magic. The acoustic nullification. It was not a magical cloak, but a controlled magnetic field modulating air pressure. The silent speed. It was not telekinesis, but the massive energy conversion of a compact fusion unit. The UFO shape. It was not an extraterrestrial saucer, but the perfect aerodynamic answer to flight without a tail, a concept refined through years of glider experiments in Germany. The war had not only forced mankind to develop the atomic bomb but also to glimpse a future of silent, effortless flight powered by controlled fusion. The speed of this scientific convergence was so rapid that human perception failed to keep pace. The enduring legacy and the enduring myth. The tangible legacy of the project was profound. Aeronautical dominance. The Horden geometry became the bedrock of American stealth design, culminating in the B-2 bomber, ensuring air superiority for decades. Energy research. Dr. Richter's FPU accelerated global research into plasma physics and fusion containment, though the stability problems took decades to overcome. However, the psychological legacy was even stronger. Because the full truth of the Silver Dart was too sensitive, too valuable, and too unsettling to reveal, the partial, filtered information that leaked out solidified into an enduring legend. The image of the silent, silver object, defying known physics over the dark forests of Europe, was permanently imprinted on the public consciousness. The true, complex story of human genius, scientific ambition, and political desperation was submerged beneath the simpler, more sensational narrative of Nazi UFOs. The greatest technological achievement of the Reich's final days became the foundation of a modern global myth. Major Vance closed the final file on Project Stargazer. He had seen the future, and he knew why the pilots, both Allied and German, had panicked. The sheer leap in technology had been too sudden, too absolute, to comprehend in the heat of battle. The line between what was possible and what was pure fantasy had been erased.